The other thing I think that people don't consider, I mean, is the musicians' disappointment in not being able to tour. You know, they must be so frustrated, and Bruce not being able to take Letter to You out there, and we're all dying to hear it live. You know, the musicians' frustration and disappointment. And I saw on Twitter today that, you know, he's got a lot of time on his hands. He's turning up at all sorts of places in and around Asbury Park, isn't he? You know, being photographed with fans that happen to, you know, come upon him, and you just feel that they're itching to go, and they're just. It must be really, really frustrating.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me today is a three-time guest. So that means she joins the Set Listing Bruce Hall of Fame, which I'm sure is that and a couple of pounds. We'll get her coffee. But Ruth Badley, I am so glad you are back. Welcome.
Oh, thanks, Jesse. And I'm honoured that I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. We just had a great discussion before I hit record about a lot of things going on. But how are you doing personally during this latest wave of, you know, resurgence and boosters and, you know, Omicron? And it's just, it is, COVID just will not go away, will it?
It won't. Well, I've done everything I can do. I'm vaccinated, I'm boosted, and, you know, I'm going about my life as best I can and as best as I'm allowed. But things seem to be opening up gradually, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, the Omicron variant hasn't really seemed as horrendous as Delta or the first round, but, you know, who knows? Luckily, it hasn't touched us or anybody in my family, so I'm very grateful for that. But who knows? You can never take anything for granted. So we're still being cautious and careful and optimistic, I guess. Optimistic.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to say this. Same thing with me. Me and Linda and Chris, we're all, you know, we've been boosted. None of us have had it yet, though, you know, all around me and my day gig, we just continually, like once a week, someone is, okay, I tested positive, I feel fine, but, you know, and so they're, instead of 10 days now, it's 5 days, but it is still one of the things that is a challenge is that before this new calendar year, the government had a program that if you were off with COVID, if the company paid you, the government would reimburse you, but that program has ended. So, you know, now that I worry about people that if they didn't have enough sick time or vacation time, though we do allow them to work from home if it is a mild case. So, yeah, I just don't know. You know, I'm trying to do everything I can, you know, when I do, you know, I try to limit going out, but, you know, the reality is it's, you know, things, I go out and I see most people are without masks and everyone in Texas are kind of going on their own way. And I think we've turned, you know, COVID into just, well, it's the flu. And I think Omicron to a certain degree is similar to that. And I'm not a medical person, but I read stories about people that this has been horrible. So yeah, my heart goes out to them. And, you know, COVID is the gift that took away the tour that never was announced, right?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it really amused me on Twitter, actually, how quickly certain people, not everyone, but
Yeah.
certain people got really righteous and angry about the fact that this tour wasn't happening. But as you say, it was never announced.
Right.
We all want it to happen, but you know, I mean, you only have to look at the news from Adele, just
Yeah.
like 24 hours. And, you know, I think it puts everything into perspective that nothing could be worse, really, than having the tickets in your hand, shelling out for an airfare, hotels, and all the rest of it, and finding that with a 12 hours notice, your enjoyment and pleasure and anticipation is dashed. And that would just be tragic. And I really respect the Bruce Springsteen camp for holding out until it is a sensible time to do it, because nothing could be worse. I mean, you just can't put yourself in that position, can you? I listened to Adele's announcement and her tears and everything, and you know, one part of my brain was thinking she was getting what, like $500,000 or pounds per show, whatever it was a lot of money. And I really think there's a case for that in those circumstances, for some compensation to come out of her bank account to those people that had saved up their hard-earned money, got on a flight to Las Vegas. And let's face it, Las Vegas is not a place you want to be without money.
Yeah.
It's no fun.
Well, and yeah, exactly, because it's one thing if Bruce comes to Dallas, right? So the only thing I'm out is the tickets to go to the show, because I live in Dallas, and so I didn't have to fly anywhere, I didn't have to drive anywhere, I didn't have hotel expense. But as you know, there are multiple people, as we talk about in sport, that some teams travel well, right? Like, there are people, especially for American football, that travel to the other cities to follow their teams. And so Bruce does that. There are a lot of fans that fly great distance to go to a show, and because they'll try to figure out multiple shows. And yes, they'll get their money back for the ticket, but they won't get their money back for the airfare. They won't get their money back for the hotel. If there's enough notice, maybe they can cancel the hotel reservations and use the airline as a credit. But yeah, you're right. I had someone on the phone. We talked earlier this week, and we kind of wish that Bruce would announce a solo tour, for 2022, just maybe like a Devils and Dust tour, because then he would only need to worry about himself and his crew staying safe, which seems to be a little bit easier than, the band. Like, what do you do? Because I was talking to someone, or I was listening to the guys on None But the Brave podcast, and they said, there is a COVID officer in any entertainment, like TV or film set. And, it is not unusual for him to come and go, okay, blank and blank have tested positive. They can't be used for 5 days. So can you imagine, an hour before showtime, like, okay, Gary and Max have tested positive. You guys got to go on without a bass player and without a drummer.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, yeah. It's just not feasible. The other thing I think that people don't consider, I mean, is the musicians' disappointment in not being able to tour. They must be so frustrated, and Bruce not being able to take Letter to You out there, and we're all dying to hear it live. The musicians' frustration and disappointment. And I saw on Twitter today that he's got a lot of time on his hands. He's turning up at all sorts of places in and around Asbury Park, isn't he? And being photographed with fans that happen to, come upon him. And you just feel that they're itching to go. And they're just, it must be really, really frustrating. All I can say is that I as with the last 2 years, he's just going to come up with some lovely surprises. And knowing I was going to talk to you today, I sort of just wrote down a little list of things that have happened in this kind of interim period that have really helped us all really to get through. I mean, not
Please
least,
share.
yeah, the radio shows, the Renegades podcasts, Springsteen on Broadway coming back, the Olympic success of Jessica, No Nukes concert, selling the catalogue was quite an interesting moment. And of course, the Music Letter to You album and the film. I mean, also, I'm sure I've left out stuff there, but those are the things that sprang to my mind. And they've just been a joy, haven't they? I mean, the radio shows, I've now got a massive, great playlist, you know.
It absolutely does, yes.
Get in my car of stuff that I didn't even know was out there that's been brought to my attention. And it's just been, all those things have just been a fabulous treat. And I think he's going to continue doing stuff like that. I just wondered whether, I'm not sure about the solo tour because I really want to see the band.
Oh yeah, I do too.
But maybe, you know, what about, I don't know, something in the barn that can go out online?
It would be nice to do that. I would think he would do very well a series of pay-per-views, you know, like the wrestling does, the WWE to do you know, a pay-per-view with the band. That would be great. You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that, and a lot of that we covered in our, you know, Springsteen 2021 year in review podcast. But you know, there were a couple of people, and very small, and there is so much good in social media. You know, we connected because of social media. This show's lifeblood is social media, with people, you know, me finding people and reaching out and getting guests. But there's also so much negative about it. And, you know, there were a couple of people that, you know, online were disappointed. They said, you know, Bruce promised at the beginning of the year that we would have some great surprises, and, you know, what did he deliver? And I went, well, what did you want from him? I mean, you know, we had a podcast with a former president. They had a book based on that. He considered to do, you know, the radio shows. He brought back Broadway. He had you know, the No Nukes concert, you know, that coming out. You know, a song with Mellencamp and others. You know, what did you want him to do? You know, and I really think it comes back to, this guy wants tracks too. I mean, that's his holy grail, right? Like, if I don't get tracks too, but my good friend Sam was talking about, he says, you know, let's pack the expectation, because, you know, it appears in the modern recording era, it isn't like it used to be, where he recorded 40 songs for a 8-track CD. You know, he maybe a few extra, but overall, it isn't like he was when he was younger. So he's already gone through the archives and released. So we're now going through a copy of a copy, right? Like, okay, what he decided wasn't good enough to release on tracks, now then we're going to get in tracks too. I think we should, it'll be great. I'll love anything unreleased, but I just don't know if it's going to be the power of that original, because, you know, in his youth, you know, he was pumping out songs all the time, and there was only so many you could use.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I mean, when it comes, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I must tell you this story that
Please.
That happened just a couple of weeks ago. I live in a really small little village. It's only about an hour away from London, but it's a very small community. And there's a guy in the village that we've got to know quite well. He's into music. My husband plays guitar and ukulele with him, so they're part of a sort of little ensemble. And he doesn't know much. He didn't know much about Springsteen, right? But he knows that I'm a massive fan. And he sent me an email, and he said to me, "I've got to tell you, Ruth, I was in the car, and Born to Run. Do you know that one? Born to Run came on the radio. I've never heard that before. And this email just blew me away. And I was trying to think to myself, when was the first time you heard Born to Run for the first time? I can't remember. It's like it's always been there. But hearing his response, you don't often meet someone, do you, in the circle that we kind of move in and talk to. You don't often come across somebody that has that kind of baby-like, childlike wonder because they're hearing something for the first time. And it really sparked my imagination. So I emailed back and I said, Dick, I'm really pleased that you love Born to Run, but you never believe this, but there's an album. It's not just a track. There's a whole album. And can you imagine that this guy, he's got all this to discover. So I took it upon myself to kind of give him some education because it was giving me some pleasure. It was giving him some pleasure. So I looked through all my collection. He puts things on sticks and he puts headphones on and he gardens and he listens to music while he's doing the gardening. So I got together a selection. I didn't want to kind of hit him with everything all at once because that's just like too much, isn't it? So I was quite selective, and knowing what kind of music he likes, I thought it would be good to give him the Born to Run album so he can really explore all that. And also the Seeger sessions, because I think he would appreciate that style of music and it's very different to Born to Run. And I also picked out the River double album because that's, an iconic piece if you're getting to know Springsteen. And here you go, disc 13 from the 1978 radio broadcasts, because there were key tracks from Darkness on that, and they're also live. And I wanted to give him the live experience too. So do you think I got that right as a kind of...
I think you did great. Yeah. Has he gotten back to you yet with listening any?
Yeah, he got back to me almost immediately, and he absolutely loves the Seeger sessions. So I haven't seen him this week, but I expect when I see him next week, he's going to give me a little bit more detail about the other.
Oh, good.
Too.
That's so much fun. That's neat to, that we become, every once in a while it'll happen where I remember years ago when the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still came out, and I had never watched the original. And back then, this was when you still got DVDs from Netflix, they mail you I guess they still do that. I don't have that, but and I remember Linda was out of town and I got the DVD in the mail and I, was settled down and I watched it, and I was amazed at how good of a film it was. Not for the time, but just period, like, this is awesome. There is a reason why this film is considered a classic, right? And I loved that joy of like, oh my goodness, this film has been here for, over 50 years, but it's just as fresh and new to me. And so yeah, I think that is amazing that, someone would like, yeah. And I love the joy of him. Like, I heard this Born to Run. Do you know that one, Ruth? And it's like, yeah, I've heard it a couple of times. And, Betsy Hodges, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, told me the story once that she says, I believe if there is an afterlife, and you get a chance to ask God, she goes, one of the first questions I'll ask is, how many times did I hear Thunder Road in my lifetime? Can you tell me? Because she says, I can't even begin to count the number of times I've heard that song, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cheered me up. Things like that cheer me up. And also,
oh, yes.
you know, the social media interaction with like-minded, your podcast, of course, and you know, these are the things that keep us going, you know, in between the lull. But I tell you what, I mean, when they cancelled the tour that was never announced,
Yes.
I kind of thought, oh, in a way, I know sounds awful, but in a way, oh, thank God I won't have to panic about tickets and how to get to the show and all that. I think that's kind of postponed all that agony, all that
Yes.
stuff, you know, for a bit longer. But of course, you know, if they announce it next week, I'll be there. But
Yes, absolutely. And I did find that, going back to what you originally said, and I'm so glad you mentioned it, I did find it very amusing that a very small percentage of people that were almost angry because there wasn't an official announcement canceling the tour that had never been officially announced, right? So I just kind of pictured, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you know, is Barbara Carr, John Landau supposed to send out, okay, I know we never officially said there was a tour, but now then we're officially going to say there isn't a tour. Like, this is just, yeah, we're going to officially announce that there is no release date on tracks 2.
yeah.
Okay, but you know, that's, yes.
By the time there is a tour, I suppose what I'm hoping for,
Yeah,
that maybe we don't get so many tracks from Born in the USA, maybe not so many tracks from Darkness, but because there's going to be all this other stuff that we haven't heard at all.
yes.
And I hope that's more to the fore. I mean, I'll be happy whatever he decides.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, and so this is a perfect example. My other great musical love is Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys.
Oh, right.
And I just adore. And so Brian Wilson just put out a new CD that is Brian Wilson at the Piano, I think is the name of it. But all it is him playing Beach Boys songs on the piano with no vocal. Wow. Just him playing the piano. And it's absolutely beautiful. But, and I say this with great love in my heart, that's kind of a give up CD. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, and this is a prime example. I always say, I'm going to support Bruce, whatever he wants to do. He's earned the right that if he never, it's unrealistic to expect him to do another Born to Run, another Darkness, another Rising, another Magic. It is just, pick whatever iconic album you want. And if you hold that as the gold standard, it is unrealistic to expect that to happen again. But, his latest album was all new songs from the band and going great. And Brian's latest was him playing piano, of this classics. I loved it. It is. I'm playing with it, and it's wonderful music to kind of just to listen to while you're working at work, and it's a beautiful to hear the simplicity of all these songs in their core piano. So I recommend it strongly. But it's just the idea of one artist is continuing to stretch himself creatively, and another is doing stuff that he just wants to do. And I think we should be incredibly grateful that in his 70s, Bruce is still pushing himself creatively.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I get the impression, maybe you know more, maybe Brian Wilson's health isn't as good.
Right.
As Bruce. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I also think that, Brian has fought, mental illness, most of his life. And so I think in a lot of ways, recording is healthy for him and I think is good. So yeah, it's a beautiful CD and I really recommend it. Just the comparison of the two was something interesting. I agree with you. I know that we all love hearing, whether it's, out in the street, Hungry Heart, Prove It All Night, Darkness on the Edge of Town. But it would be interesting to have a mix of, some Western stars, some Letter to You. I would love a few more from Magic, and just a more modern mix. I think my hope is when he tours again, knock on wood, that they will do this as if Letter to You had just been released, and there's going to be 5 or 6 songs on that set list that mixed in with other classics. We will see. Though, if it's a greatest hits CD, tour where he's doing just all these great songs, it'll be great to hear them live again, regardless.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Letter to You stuff it's so emotional, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think as a community, when you go to a concert, you're a community, aren't you? And
yes.
I think some of that stuff is going to be very, very powerful and almost overwhelming. I think last time I was on, or maybe the first time, I was talking about the Hungry Heart events
yes.
that happen around the country, and Hannah and John, who organise those, and they've been organising them through lockdown, sort of.
Yes.
And they're getting back to doing in-person Hungry Heart events. And the last one I went to in London a few months back now, before Omicron problem put paid to things, there was some tracks from Ghosts. Now, we're listening to the music. He's not in the room playing it live. We're just listening to it. But a track like Ghosts came on, and I can guarantee, well, I know I was in tears, because the feeling of community with that particular track, and it's one of those community songs, isn't it, that you will all be fist pumping in the air and singing the chorus, and you got the feeling then of the power of some of this stuff and how compelling it's going to be in concert. So I really, really hope it's Letter to You heavy.
Yes, I do too. I very much so. Yeah. All right. So since you have been on, you have a new book.
I do.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay. Did you have any lockdowns in Texas? Were you actually locked down?
Yes, we were. So to kind of give you I started a brand new job on February 10th, 2020. And we joke about that I've not been at this company, CoachNet, during a normal time. Like, this is like, my wife asked the other day, well, what did you guys do before it got crazy? I said, I don't know. I started, and then a month later it went crazy. So yeah, we went 2 months where we were all locked in our house, did not do anything. And then in toward the end of May of 2020, we went back in the office, all wearing masks. Every day there was someone at 6 a.m. when our first shift got in, was at the front door, taking your temperature, asking, have you had any unusual coughs? Have you been exposed to anyone? Doing the health checks. Since then, I've been working at the office, but it was only until recent that, we started going out to restaurants and doing things. I've gone to one movie theater, one movie since this all, everything happened. Earlier in the fall of last year, when things seemed to be dying down, I got 3 or 4 concerts in, and now then everything's back up, and so we're going. So yes, we did our experience where we were not going many places. Yes.
All right. Well, I asked that for a reason, because I wrote in this book. It's called Bite-Sized World. It's a travel, food, and live entertainment memoir, and I wrote it in lockdown, and we went into lockdown in March 2020 for about 3 or 4 months. I think it seemed like about 3 years, but anyway. Yeah. So travel, food, and live entertainment, the things that enrich our lives, really. I mean, you mentioned restaurants and going out to concerts, eating out. They're the things that we enjoy doing, and they were the first things that we were denied, really.
Yes.
In the lockdown, all those things disappeared, didn't they? And what was weird for me is that just a month before lockdown, I was in Australia, Indonesia, Singapore, Dubai. We'd gone on a big trip, and we came back March the 16th. We returned home, and the next week everything just shut down, and it was a very, very hard adjustment mentally.
Yes.
What you were doing, just the week before, and suddenly your life was completely different. It was a really hard mental adjustment, but I wanted something positive to come out of it. So I put together a bite-sized world really as a benign gesture of resistance. I couldn't do anything about the situation, but you couldn't stop me traveling in my head and thinking about all the fabulous travel experiences and opportunities I've had. And to get those down, it was a comfort to me.
Yes.
To think about those things. And I thought, this is going to be a comfort to someone else. And I did have some interesting things to say, I hope, because the timeline of the book is 2015 to last summer. So 2015 to summer 2021. That's the time of the book. And in 2015, through my husband's work, we had the opportunity to move to Dubai for 2.5 years. And that was a life-changing experience.
Oh, I can imagine.
I blogged about it at the time, so friends and family would know what we were doing and how it was all working out. And, if you think about those years in Bruce terms, 2015 onwards, that is the River Tour, the Ties That Bind River Tour, the second one, through there, the Born to Run memoir, Springsteen on Broadway opened, I think, or at least the tickets went on sale while we were still in Dubai. So there was quite a lot of Bruce stuff happening. Of course, in Dubai, he's not going to come anywhere close to that.
Right.
I was getting all my Bruce information about the River Tour through social media. So looking at all the set lists and all the places that he was going and the reviews of all the concerts, it was tantalizing. And that, when I'm in Dubai, I'm having a wonderful time, but I knew something was happening somewhere without me being there. And it was a drip, drip, drip announcement on where the tour was going to go. And you didn't know really in the UK where the tour was going to drop and how it was going to fit in. Could you fly there? Could you fly back? Where were you going to stay? It was a tension all the time about when we'd get this information. So there was a lot I could pour into the book about that experience and knowing that you needed to be where those concerts were in Europe and you just needed to wait for that information. But of course, all my friends, my Bruce buddies, were in the UK. So when we finally did get the information on the UK ticket drop, I was in India. I was on holiday in India. So we had to work out all the time differences and when Ticketmaster would drop and linking up to the UK. In our hotel room in India, it was like the Houston Control Center. We had every device going, waiting for the minute. And it was successful with all those barriers. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy next time around. The barriers to
sure.
and all that kind of stuff. But there was magic in the air, and we got the tickets we wanted, and we just had to kind of engineer the flights and the hotel rooms and for it to all fit in. So I've charted that as part of the experience of the book. So Bruce fans, there is lots in there for you. I also did a review really of Springsteen on Broadway, a straight review of the show, my experience of the show. So that's in there. But aside from that, I'm writing about all the places that we could travel to from Dubai, because it's a fantastic travel hub. And it opens up access to places that you wouldn't ordinarily think of visiting if you're from America or the UK. Places like Lebanon, Jordan, Iran, Bulgaria, some really interesting places, and our experiences of food and finding out where to go when we land, that kind of thing. So anyone that's interested in adventurous travelers and places that you've always liked or dreamed about going, I hope I've touched on some of those for curious travelers. People ask me, well, which place did you enjoy visiting the most? And I don't know how this fits with an American audience, but I have to say Iran. And
wow, really?
Oh, I come back to what we were talking about before we started recording, that the country is not the government.
Yes.
Nothing could be more true than when you think about Iran. But there was a funny little story attached to that.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity to visit Iran, and we visited 3 cities, and I write about it at length in the book. But shortly after that, I arrived at Newark Airport for Springsteen on Broadway. And of course, I've got something in my passport that says I've been to Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm paranoid because I'm thinking, is this going to prevent me from getting through passport control,
Right.
with a hitch? And I'm hyper nervous. And when you're hyper nervous, you're like over talking.
Yeah.
The passport guy, and I mean, I'm sure he says this to everybody. Why are you visiting America? What are you doing here? So there's me. I feel like a sort of clown, and I'm saying, I'm in my most excited British way, I got tickets for Springsteen on Broadway, and he just about smiled.
Okay.
And he's chewing gum, and he said, "Nice." And he barely smiled. And then the next thing, straight at me, why'd you go to Iran? And I'm saying, holiday. And my husband at the same time as that says, business. And we look the most suspicious pair in the world. And he looks at us both, and then he finally nods, gives us a sort of jerk of his head, and we were free. We thought,
yes.
Wow, I'm so paranoid, that something will get in the way of me seeing Bruce on Broadway. And if it's because I've been to Iran, I'm sorry. But
so
it worked out okay.
Yeah, I had a similar story. I was going to Canada, and and they said, what are you going for? And I'm like, oh, I'm here I said, one of my coworkers is retiring, so we're here to meet her, and we're gonna have a dinner celebrating her retirement, and we'll do some meetings. What kind of meetings? Just about processes and things. Who else is? You said we. Who? Well, my friend Christian over there, and she was incredibly nervous and just kind of suspicious. And I was, what did I do? So the next time I went to Winnipeg, the reality, and I was making this joke to everyone, Brian Wilson was not touring in the US or anywhere close to me with his, he had done a album of Gershwin covers. And so he wasn't coming anywhere close to Dallas, but he was playing in Winnipeg, and we have an office in Winnipeg. And at that time I would go to Winnipeg at least once a year. And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, I haven't been to Winnipeg this year. Would you care if I go? And he goes, no, I don't care. And I said, all right, just want to let you transparency, the reason I'm picking this date is I'm going to go see, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys perform. He goes, okay, I don't care, you know. So, so the joke I told everyone, but I did not tell passport control, as you said, that what's your purpose? Well, if my boss asks, it's for meeting the employees. But the reality is I'm just going for a concert. But I knew they would not have a sense of humor. So I resisted making that joke to them. So yeah, that's great. Well, the book sounds a lot of fun. It is, it sounds like it must have been very cathartic to write while you are not going to visit, you are getting not the experiences. So to kind of relive some of those experiences must have been a lot of fun, right?
Oh, it was, and I think it really helped me get through it. People ask me, why did you call it bite-sized world? What does that mean? And it's got a few meanings. First of all, the chapters in the book are really short, so that it's very easy to read and get a flavor of a place or an experience. Those are the books I like reading myself, where it's kind of snappy. So it's written like snapshots, postcards, really, from lots of different places. That makes it easy to read. But also, I think our world was reduced in size, suddenly from having the whole globe to think about going to and visiting, your world was reduced to your home, and if you were lucky, your garden. So, the idea of it being a small world, I thought was a good one to sort of retain from that point of view. So it's got a few meanings, and of course there's food in there. So bite size, why not? Everywhere we go, I really like to get a taste of what people like to eat in that country. So there's quite a lot of national dishes and food that you'd easily find if you landed in Lebanon or Iran or Bulgaria, what the kind of things that you'd be offered to eat. Because I think that's always interesting for people. I love food.
Yeah, I love food too. And that is one of the things that, we do our best to try to enjoy local restaurants, and to see local dishes. I'll never forget one of the first times I grew up both in Louisiana and Kentucky. My dad was stationed in Fort Knox, but we moved away, and I remember going to Kentucky, going to Louisville for a business trip, and I was sitting next to the client. There was a bunch of us, and I said, what's the dish that, Kentucky, what's the food? And he goes, bourbon. And I went, oh, okay. And so since then, Lynn and I have gone to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail a couple of times and have gone that. And there are a couple of dishes that Louisville is known for in Kentucky, but mostly it is bourbon. But I love going to, like we went up to St. Louis, and one of the things that they do really well is fried ravioli, which was just delicious. It was just, when they try to do it here in Texas, it's not as good. I guess similar to like if you go up to Philadelphia, you can't get good Tex-Mex, according to my friend, right? So you have to go with what they're doing. I think this is perfect. The book sounds, pardon the pun, delicious. It's just, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to read. So I can't wait to order it. If someone wants to find it, what's the best way?
Oh, well, the best way is Amazon.com.
Okay.
You can type in Ruth Badley, that's Badley, and both my books come up. Or you can type in bite-sized world. Bite-sized has got a hyphen. Bite-sized, okay. And it's got a bright orange cover. I think you can see that.
Yes, it is. I will. When I tweet the episode, I will include the image of the cover, and I will have the link. In fact, I just tweeted that I was talking to you and included the link to the book on Amazon. It sounds wonderful. I can't wait to read it. So,
Jesse, do you know a dish called chicken Kiev? Do you know what that
Yes.
is?
Right.
Right. Okay. I had a question in my mind because I went to Ukraine and I went
Yeah.
to Kiev and I was dying to find out, do they eat chicken Kiev in Kiev?
Right.
And I say they do. And I was
Oh,
thrilled by that.
yeah.
It was a dish that was very popular in London during the 1970s. It's gone off the radar a little bit now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do eat it in Kiev. So I felt right at home.
Well, that's like I know that French fries were not invented in France; they were Belgium. So yeah, that's it. And or chips, as you guys call it. Well, that sounds wonderful. So what's next, Ruth? What's the next book on the agenda?
That's what my husband says. And well, he keeps saying to me, how about a novel next? Because my first two books have been memoir.
That was just the question I was going to ask. Have you ever had the itch to do some fiction?
Well, yes, I just need a cracking idea. So I'll let that stew in my mind. In the meantime, I've started a course at a college in London. I go every Monday, and something you might be interested in actually. It's a voiceover course.
Oh,
Because with my first book, Where Are the Grown-Ups, which was about my family history, I narrated the audio version. And I kind of did it on instinct. I've got a background in drama and theatre. So I just used those skills, but I don't know if I did it right, if I could do it any better. So I've signed up to do this voiceover course to see, if I can improve and maybe do an audio book for someone else, narrate somebody else's book.
oh, nice.
In that too. So we'll see how that goes.
Very nice. Well, Ruth, as always, this is so much fun visiting with you. I just love our conversations, and
Covered a lot of ground this time.
What?
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yes, we have. We have. We will do this again soon, I'm sure. As I said, I'm looking forward to the book. I love the idea of bite-sized world, and it is a great cover. The showing someone eating on the cover. It is absolutely wonderful. Available on Amazon and both Kindle and a paperback. And hopefully we can see each other at a show in 2023.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be, yes. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Oh, well, my Twitter, I'm on Twitter a lot at Ruth Badley PR. Just don't put an R in Badley, it's Badley. I'm on Instagram, ruth.badley. And also I have a Facebook page, which is at Where Are the Grown-Ups? And that's me too. So
yeah, I loved your first book. It was such a powerful story, and it moved me. And so I'm really excited about this new one. Any final words?
This one's much more lighthearted.
Yes.
There's some moments, there's some thoughtful moments, and a couple of, I won't say anything, but the last chapter, somebody once said to me after they read it, is there any place that you don't want to go back to ever? And I won't give you any spoilers, but it's Tenby in Wales.
Okay.
You'll know if you get to the last chapter why.
Okay, well, very nice. Good. Well, Ruth, thank you so much. Any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Well, let's keep listening to the fabulous music and the wonderful output that we're getting. And until we can all meet and sing Ghosts together,
Yes.
back at that stage with the full band, let's just console ourselves with the output that we get. I don't know if the radio shows have finished, but maybe there's some more surprises to come. And I'm happy to wait. I'm more than happy to wait and be careful. I want that carefree feeling again.
Yes.
I don't want to be worrying about who might have what, especially with the band.
Yes.
I'd like that carefree feeling, and I'm happy to wait for that. With all the stuff that people like you put out on social media and all the conversations we can have with fans around the world, thanks to technology, we've got something to keep us going, haven't we?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. And I do think that after this break, I think he will go back to do the radio show. I think he enjoys it as much as we enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think he is itching to perform all of them. And so, you know, hopefully we will, I think let's all, you know, let's all find the snail mail address and send, you know, letters to his staff going, you know, hey, John Landau, can we do a pay-per-view? Just get the band together in the barn and do, you know, do a set, you know, do a quick 2-hour set, you know, that you guys can cut through that out quickly and we'd love it. So, yeah.
So, the films have been wonderful, haven't they?
They have been.
Yeah. Brilliant.
They have been absolutely brilliant. I loved seeing the youthful team and the No Nukes, you know, and I do agree that barn was so beautiful that I would love for him to do another show there. So, yeah. All right, Ruth Badley, thank you so much for talking to me on a Saturday afternoon. Listeners, you stay safe. Go get vaccinated. Go get boosted. Be kind to each other. I think that is so needed today. There is a lot of anger and frustration on both sides of the aisle if you're here in the US. And let's just try to be a little kinder to each other, because I know that's my plan for 2022. Ruth, thank you. Listeners, thank you. And we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
This podcast would not be possible without my wonderful group of patrons. I want to send a special thanks to John Munson, Mary Thomas, Terry Smith, Dale Hosick, Andrew Goddard, Stephen Malio, Alex Samada, Anna Lynn, Chris Bloom, Holly Mack, and Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. Your support means the world to me, and you are forever in my heart.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.